The leaders of Germany and France have met in Berlin to coordinate their response to tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The two committed to doing everything possible to resolve the situation through diplomacy. But they also renewed warnings to Moscow that it would pay a high price if it attacks Ukraine. Meanwhile, Western nations have put troops on alert and stepped up arms deliveries to Ukraine.
An eagerly awaited arrival at Kiev airport. Military equipment sent by the United States to shore up Ukraine as it braces for a possible Russian invasion. It's their third shipment, but it's not enough to resist a bigger and better equipped army, government officials say. Please help us to convince the German government to be more proactive. We urgently need defensive weapons. We are alone. We are not in NATO. Nobody will send us troops, not even the Americans. We have to defend ourselves. But Germany's new government has not answered the calls. At a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in Berlin, Chancellor Olaf Scholz once again ruled out sending heavy weapons to Kiev. There are reasons for this, which of course also stem from developments over the past years and decades. Nevertheless, we have of course done a lot to actively support economic development and the development of democracy in Ukraine, with the financial possibilities and international responsibilities that we have. And that's why Ukraine knows that it can rely on Germany, and I think that also shapes politics to a large extent. An approach that has earned Berlin heavy criticism from some of its Eastern European partners and from Kiev itself. And while German and French representatives prepare to meet with their Ukrainian and Russian counterparts on Wednesday to seek a diplomatic solution, some Ukrainians are preparing for the worst. On the outskirts of their capital, these civilian volunteers are undergoing military training to defend their country on their own, if need be.
We can speak now to our chief political editor, Michaela Küfner. She was at the press conference given by Olaf Scholz and Emmanuel Macron earlier. Hi, Michaela. What's your impression? How closely aligned are the positions of Germany and France on these tensions over Ukraine?
Well, in terms of the outlook and the approach, they are very much aligned. The way they interpret it is slightly different. And we just have to remind ourselves that the United States have just put 8,500 troops on alert. We're seeing NATO launch demonstrations of power. We're seeing maneuvers on the Russian side. And right in the middle of this, the European Union, its leaders meeting here in Berlin, Olaf Scholz, whose country Germany has the G7 presidency, but particularly France, French President Emmanuel Macron, who holds the EU presidency, need to find a way to not just convey the message that they stand united, but that they would also be willing to act. And we've heard Olaf Scholz stress once again that it's quite clear that it will have a very high price. But clearly what he means is economic sanctions, where he says they will be very clear, but doesn't want to go into the exact details. And the French side really wanting to demonstrate unity. Well, the big question mark is, would anybody be willing to go beyond that? And that's where Berlin has been very cagey, even when it comes to whether a country like Estonia is allowed to pass on weapons that were formerly German.
Indeed, and that's the question now about support for Ukraine, because Germany has continued to say it will not send defensive weapons to Ukraine. Do you see that, the possibility of that changing?
No. Olaf Scholz was asked once again whether Germany would provide weapons. He said no, not for historic reasons, and that Germany would stand in for Ukraine remaining a country where gas is basically sent through, increasing and maintaining its strategic importance, economic importance, supplying funds also to the economy there. At the same time, Estonia wants to use, ironically, still Cold War era East German weapons, send those to Ukraine. And that's something where Germany is still sitting on the fence. But no, the government line maintains no direct supply of weapons to Ukraine. A lot of criticism coming particularly from Eastern partners in Poland for that.
Indeed, there has been criticism of Germany for not taking a more aggressive position towards Russia. How has the government reacted to that criticism?
Well, it is trying to be as clear as it possibly can by saying that it stands in for the sovereignty of Ukraine. That is a lot of rhetoric. And the big question mark is what would it mean if Russia steps over that line, steps over that border? Something that was diffused in 2014 after the annexation of Crimea with a German proposal. That's the Normandy format that includes Russia, Ukraine, France and Germany around the table to discuss this. Now there's talk of a more extended format also that includes the Americans. There are talks going on at the OSCE level. So Germany at this moment stands for the belief in diplomacy, which succeeded to a certain degree, arguably, last time around, while at the same time maintaining pressure, also thanks to the United States.
Our chief political editor, Michaela Küffner, for us there. Thank you so much.